we thank you for taking time to join us this evening for this first town hall with President John Broadmeadow. So our format will be, I'm going to keep everybody on mute. You are welcome to add questions to the chat, and we'll get those to the president to address. We're going to bring him on now. He has some remarks. We also received a number of questions that he will be answering, and then we'll add any that you send in as well. We're recording this for folks who aren't able to join us this evening, and it will be available in a few nights. We'll post that for everyone. And without further ado, why don't we get going? So, sir, you've been here for 17 days. We're so happy to have you here in the office on the 4th floor of Jackman. And we welcome you to your first town hall.
Diane, terrific. Thank you very much. We may need to, okay, how about now? Is that better? All right, good. So, hey, good evening, everybody. I'm not sure what you heard before I went back on mute, but thanks for taking the time out to be here. I really do appreciate the opportunity to talk to all of you. Like Diane said, 17 days in the seat. Karen and I got here on the 13th of May. I've actually been in the job since the 1st of May, but it took a little time to get up here, and we could talk a little bit about that. One thing I do want to correct from Diane, she said you're welcome to throw comments out there. I encourage you to do that. If you've got some questions as I'm going through, please throw some comments out on the chat. I'd really like to hear your comments and what you have to say. Hey, so Karen and I are on board. Like I said, got here on the 13th. The movers came and dropped our stuff off at Woodbury Hall, and we started our unpacking. To be honest, Karen started all the unpacking and getting us moved into that really beautiful house. Completed our 24th move coming up here. That's the life of a military family. So she's pretty good at doing that. I heard Diane say it's a beautiful night up here. My immediate reflection that I've never spent much time on campus at this time of year. I've been up here, like most of you, through the winter while we were at school. When we come up to visit family and others, kind of driven by the campus. But these last 3 weeks have really given me a great opportunity to wander this campus at a pretty beautiful time of the year. And I just want to leave you with that we have an absolutely beautiful campus, and it has really struck me just what a beautiful place this is. Karen and I and our dog Quincy have taken a great opportunity to take advantage of the Shaw Outdoor Center across the street. Taking the dog out for a walk, walking all over the campus, and it is a very beautiful place. I'd like to start with something because, quite frankly, this is something that I never in my wildest dreams thought would be one of the first things I had to do as the president of the university. But that Sunday night that we moved in, I got it on a phone call, and unfortunately, we lost one of our students who was out hiking over one of our summer programs in Germany. And Isaiah Trunk was a terrific young man who really embraced Norwich. Bill McCullough and I made it out to his funeral this past Friday, met his family, a truly wonderful family who loves Norwich and knew their son loved Norwich, gave him a great tribute. But what I'd like to leave you with is the fact that service was filled with Norwich people, Norwich cadets, current students, and also some alumni who came back to pay tribute to one of our own. Like I said, not something I thought I'd have to do as my first duty as president, but it was one that I was honored to do to represent our university. Please keep Isaiah and his family in your thoughts and prayers. One of the other things that I got to do was I just got back last night from the Brian Bill Memorial Golf Tournament. For those of you that may or may know Pat and Michael Perry, what they have done in keeping their son's legacy alive is really very special, very meaningful. I was very moved and honored to be there with them. for their 13th golf tournament in honor of their son. I, again, very honored to represent Norwich down there, although there were a lot of great Norwich alums contributing to that. So two events that really have honored two very important Norwich alumni, and ask you to keep them all in your thoughts and prayers. So let me shift to some of the reflections of my first month in the job. I'm watching the mute button here to make sure I don't go on mute again as people come in. For those of you that have heard, about the priorities that the Board of Trustees gave me when I came in, or those of you that haven't, I'll just say them out loud. One is to assess our foundational values. This is a values-based institution. It's something that we all take very seriously. Through all the turbulence that's gone on here lately, it is my task and my goal to assess where we stand and make sure those foundational values remain intact. My second priority is fiscal stability. I intend to make sure that in the face of all the headwinds that are facing higher education today, that our school remain on a good and firm financial footing, so that we can bring a Norwich education and our Norwich lifestyle well into the future. Third priority is enrollment and retention. And that is something that we're right in the middle of right now. I'll talk a little bit about some of our enrollment, and I'm learning an awful lot about that part of our program. And finally, my previous stated priorities are our strategic plan, putting together a business-oriented strategic plan that makes sure that our goals, keeping Norwich the storied institution it is well into the future, put us on good financial footing, is something that I'm working very closely with the senior staff on now in getting that strategic plan out there. I just want to start by saying those goals and responsibilities that the Board of Trustees gave me up front remain intact. They are in the background of everything that I've been doing over this past month. And it's something that will continue to be my priority as I move forward. I haven't come off those, although I may be modifying some of the things that we're doing. I'll keep all of you informed as we move forward on this. So what am I looking at as I'm in the seat? My initial focus, quite frankly, is on our people. I need to come in. I need to assess the team that's here, see how they're doing, see how they're feeling about things. Take on board the suggestions that they want to give to me, and perform my assessment on how I'm going to shape and lead this team going into the future. I've been very positively impressed, even though I walked in right at the end of graduation, kind of caught that post-graduation lull where a lot of people were out on leave. Here lately, a lot of people have been coming back. They're energized. And even though it's the summertime up here, they are really focused on what Norwich is doing. Some key positions, though, that I've got to take care of, and that we're working on. The first one, the Vice President of Development and Alumni Relations. I'll probably field some questions on the lawsuit that's out there. I won't talk much about it now, but if you got questions, I know we've got one that's already been submitted. I'll get to that in the questions and answers if you do have something, although I'll be pretty reticent about where I want to talk about it. But as a result of that, many of you know that Dave Whaley, who formerly had filled the position, stepped in as the interim vice president during Karen Gaines, Dr. Gaines's tenure as the interim president, waiting for my arrival. Dave and I connected really, really well. Dave has brought me up to speed in a lot of ways on the things that he is very attuned to, and I really appreciate his advice and counsel. He felt that he had accomplished everything he needed to at this point and decided to step back into that retirement that he had, although he is going to remain as an advisor to me as he has been for many of our past presidents. As Dave steps back, I've asked Dave Casey, the Associate Vice President for Development, to step in while we're continuing our search for a new Vice President. That search is underway. It's moving along. I'll be honest, I'm keeping that a little bit at arm's length and letting a panel made up of a number of folks here in the administration, as well as some of our trustees, to do that search, and that's well underway. While we're waiting for that vice president to come on board, though, one of the things that I have asked Dave Casey to do is to do an examination of elevating the position of alumni director, back to being an associate vice president. I think that needs to be elevated back up. That is not just a demonstration, but it's really a firmly held belief that I have that we need to make sure that our alumni are on the same level as at that associate vice president level, that we have an office that's dedicated to all of our alumni. And I've asked Dave Casey to take a look at that and give me an assessment on how we do that as soon as possible. Second position that I've got we had a vacancy out there was our chief financial officer. Some of you may know we'd done a search for some vice presidents, but when I came on board and I looked around, I said, we've got some really good folks internally. In fact, we've got one person in particular who I really have a lot of faith can be a good CFO for us moving forward. Leroy Young has worked for the university for a long time. He is our controller currently, and he knows the nuts and bolts of our finances like nobody else. He truly understands it. And I've asked Leroy to step into the role as associate or as the interim chief financial officer, and he's agreed to do that. We're working now to make sure that he is building a familiarity with the breadth of that job. You've heard me talk, if you've sat through any of my previous town halls, about our current interim vice CFO, Jim Dunkelman. I've said before, and I maintain Jim has done yeoman's work for our university and has really brought the office of CFO forward. And Jim will step back again into his pre-planned retirement. His 4-month stint here turned into a 2 years plus stint. So Jim has done some great work with us. And like Dave Whaley, Jim will stay on board as an advisor, helping Leroy get his feet on the ground. But that leaves me with a new critical vacancy, and that's the controller. So I'm looking for 2 real critical positions, a controller and a bursar. So for along with about 43 other vacancies that we'd like to fill. So if any of you out there know anybody ready to step into to one of those key positions, I'd love to have some alum come back on board and take on these important jobs and be part of our team here directly. Those key positions are truly teammates here, and they are going to help all of those priorities that I've already talked about. While I'm talking about the CFO, I'd like to take a minute here to talk a little bit about the budget.
No, this is a good time.
As I was coming on board, the fiscal year 25 budget was put together. Some real hard work on the part of acting president Karen Gaines. I've talked about Jim Dunkelman. Jim has done great work for us in pulling this together. I want to send a special thank you out to Mr. John Collins and the Board of Trustees, Budget and Finance Committee. Those volunteers, those trustees dedicated an awful lot of time to helping pull this budget together. As I've said before, we're in pretty good shape, but we do. So somebody's got some great power out there and just had the ability to remove me from the meeting. So not quite sure how that happened, but somebody holds power out there. So if you could please be conscious of that. So when I got knocked off, I was starting to talk about the budget. The FY25 budget has been pulled together by a really good team of folks. Let me kind of back up a little bit and talk about this because it's important that all of you understand where we are. As I was mentioning, we're in some pretty good shape. We've got a pretty good endowment backing us up. We're up around 270 million, depending upon how the markets have done here lately. And I can talk about some specifics on that. In fact, I'll tell you, we got an advanced question, in May of 2020, we were at 224.6 million. That was the, the end of the President Schneider era. Last year, at our last audit in May of 2023, we were at 271 million. So that number is important for you because as you listen to all the challenges that small liberal arts colleges face, that endowment really serves us pretty well. It is a strategic asset that we have that puts us in pretty good stead. Those of you that have paid attention to what I've said before, as I was coming into this job, my biggest concern, if you will, is that we use that endowment a little bit too tactically, and I want to move away from that. So let me bring it back to this FY25 budget and where we stand. As we put this budget together, as the team, I don't want to say we because I wasn't here yet, wasn't involved in it, but I do support everything that they did. They took a very conservative view. We took a very conservative view on how to do this. And if you want to think about it, there's really three levers that go in on the income side of this budget that really influence it. The first are enrollment projections. There's a little bit of voodoo that goes into this and trying to determine how many students you're actually going to bring on board. We try and make some projections, but year in and year out, as you can imagine, that becomes a very difficult task. And this year, as we're facing some challenges that I'll talk about a little bit later, it became even more difficult. So the team decided that we would use I have conservative written on my notes, but in reality, it's a very pessimistic projection about the enrollment. And we're using about 512 new enrollees as our projection for an incoming class. Our best projection puts us at 579, but we didn't build the budget around that projection. I'll come back to those numbers a little bit later when I talk about the specifics of enrollment. The second piece that we have to factor in is the discount rate. Very few people pay, full boat tuition. We provide a lot of scholarships through the generosity of a lot of our donors. That's the proper use of the endowment that I talked about. But sometimes when that number gets too big, when we're giving too much away in order to stay competitive, we've got to balance that out. We've got to balance out that fiscal prudence of using the money that has been entrusted with us versus remaining competitive and offering a value for the education that you get here. And then the third lever is really an endowment draw, where we are with all of our scholarships and then all of those other things that we draw money out of the endowment in order to support current operations. Our ideal target is at about 5%. Last year, we were at about 9% as we went through FY24. For FY25, the budget that we put together this year, again, we went fairly conservative on a target to get back down to that 5%. Our plan draw is about 7%. So those are the three levers, and they all work together. They all get very complicated throughout the year. In addition to those three normal levers that we pull, the team also went through last year and did a lot of scrubbing and took about $600,000 in cuts. Those cuts came across the board, and they were things in some cases that were relatively easy to make, but many of them were difficult cuts that we took. But you never cut your way out of a tough financial situation. Where that leaves us going into FY25 is a deficit, and we've got a deficit of about $600,000. And the Board of Trustees made it very clear right after they voted me in and said, "Congratulations, you're the president. Now, Mr. President, let's solve that deficit that we're handing you." And it's a challenge that's doable. It's a challenge that's doable because we've got a great team. In one sense, I've got a lot of confidence in the people that are here in getting at that deficit. But in reality, the team that put this together was very helpful in their conservative view on how we do this. So how do we get at this? It's really diversifying in our income streams. There are a lot of things that we'll need to look at, things like grants and other programs that we're actually getting pretty good at. And I'll talk about those when we get into the academic side of my update. It's about keeping a handle on those discounts and making sure that we are being fiscally prudent. Ultimately, if we have to, we look at increasing the draw, but that is not my intention, and I don't intend to do that. I've got the year to solve it. We're just starting the fiscal year now, right at 1 June, right as I'm coming on board. So I feel like I'm in pretty good shape to get at that deficit, and it will be a big part of my focus throughout this year. Long term, I talked about diversifying revenue streams, but some of the other things that we're looking at, we've taken on a very innovative program with members of the administration, our enrollment folks working with our ROTC programs to bring on board a number of scholarships above and beyond what we normally get. And I'll talk again a little bit more about these when I get to the enrollment portion and where we stand enrollment wise. When I get to the academic portion, I want to talk to you about some of our sponsored programs. And we actually just got some really good news, late breaking news on some sponsored programs that we've got. We've got a lot of folks working hard in that. Ultimately, though, it comes down to the long-term health of our university will be about growing our endowment, and that will be an enduring thing that I take on through my tenure. So I've been saying I'll talk about other things. Let me shift gears a little bit and talk about enrollment. I told you that we started with some pessimistic. I like that word better than conservative, because we wanted to be pessimistic as we looked at the market. We're doing really well, though, from all initial indications. So right now we're in the phase where we're beginning to look at the number of deposits that are being made. And as you may know, if you're reading anything about higher ed, a lot of deposits are being made in schools around the country. Some schools are down. We happen to be way up. And I'm always reluctant to talk about specific numbers because there's a lot that goes into interpreting them. But here, as of recently, I get a daily report on this. We're pushing about 900 deposits. Last year at this time, we were at 619 deposits. So as I look at 900 deposits today compared to 619 deposits last year, and interestingly, as I look back about 5 or 6 years, it's been at about that 600 rate. We're doing pretty good. We're doing really good. I credit an awful lot of that to the marketing campaign that has been led by Danielle Pelzarski, our chief of staff. She's done a great job in marshaling an effort funded by the Board of Trustees to really make some good penetration into some different markets. Now, when I talk about that, a lot of that is done through social media and things that really resonate with young folks that are interested in college. But we're not just doing it haphazardly. This marketing campaign is really using monitored metrics. We're monitoring clicks and the rest, and it seems to be bearing fruit. We've got folks on the ground throughout the country that are helping the effort to identify those markets that we really want to penetrate. An example is junior ROTC. We've had folks going into junior ROTC departments around the country talking about Norwich, finding those high school students that are already propensed to come to a military college. And we're seeing those results in this high number of deposits. But I am going to offer a caution. Again, if you've been reading about higher education, you've heard about all of the problems related to the FAFSA, the common application that the federal government uses to baseline the federal aid that's given to students. That's a huge part of the financial aid that factors into the calculus for incoming students and their parents. I am worried, I will remain worried until the fall, that the FAFSA failures, quite frankly, could very adversely impact our enrollment. Even though we're up on deposits, I am worried that if the FAFSA issue is not resolved sufficiently, we could have a lot of students that say, hey, I'm just not going to do it. I'm going to take a gap year. So we're going to watch that very, very closely. But I'll go back to a positive. We've got a couple other programs that are really helping us out. We've started something called Start Ready. So beyond just accepting somebody's application and sending them a letter and saying, hey, congratulations, you've been accepted to Norwich University, we're leaning in with phone calls and conversations with these students and actually getting to the point where we are actually getting them prepped to enroll in the programs now. So we're leaning in hard on these students, particularly those that are giving us their deposits, to already put in their mind that we want you as a Norwich student. I want to thank the Board of Trustees, those of you that are out there listening to this, for your phone calls to these students and accelerating this Start Ready program, where we're working very, very closely with the students and their families to get them on board, to get them in the mindset that they're coming to Norwich University. I credit that with a lot of not just the deposits, but some of the excitement that we're seeing out there. And I'm hoping that goes a long way to overcoming a lot of these FAFSA issues that we see out there. I also want to highlight some great work done between our admissions folks and the ROTC programs here. Right now, we have about 78 Navy and Army ROTC students that will be coming here on scholarships that are guaranteed for either the last 3 years in the case of the Army, or for the last 4 years of a 5-year program on the part of the Navy. These are on top of the about 45 4-year ROTC scholarships that we already have. This was a very conscious decision on our part and supported by both the Navy and the Army to really increase the number of ROTC scholarships that we're going to have, particularly in the next 5 years. Norwich has agreed to pick up the cost for these students coming in coming in this year. But the advantage is now we get full ride tuition from these ROTC programs for the next 3 or 4 years, depending upon which program they're in. If you start to do the math on that and you figure we get somewhere from 70 to hopefully 100 full ride scholarships in addition to our normal ROTC scholarships, it was a terrific financial decision, a great boon for us, and some terrific support that we got out of the Army and the Navy to take these on board. These kinds of things, this kind of innovative thinking as I'm coming on board really makes me feel pretty good. I remain cautiously optimistic that the numbers that we're seeing bearing fruit from the marketing campaign, the Start Ready program, and other things that we're doing are going to give us some higher enrollment numbers than we used in building the budget. All right, so let me shift gears. I think I'll probably get a lot of questions on that, and I hope I do. Let me talk a little bit about academics at this point, because we've got some really good news stories going on here as well. One of the areas that I've started to take a lot of briefs on are sponsored programs. So think about grants and other things that we get from the government. We have a couple of lines of effort to solicit these sponsored programs and the funds that go with them. They can be very complicated, and we seem to be having some great success. I'll give you one as an illustration that we just got from the National Science Foundation, a 5-year grant worth a little over $5 million. This is all late breaking news. We got word of this award late last week. This builds on it's a continuation of a previous $3.5 million award that we had gotten from the National Science Foundation previously. So that's not chump change. That's really a pretty good effort. But even more important than the money that's associated with this, it's the opportunities that it's giving to our students, and it fits our model exactly. It's going to allow us to put students into an artificial intelligence, machine learning program that is going to be truly cutting edge. And it reflects exactly where we want to be in a quality curriculum for our students. So I'm very encouraged by our team, their hard work to get these grants and these other sponsored programs, and we're doing pretty well across the board. I talked about diversifying income streams. This is a great example of that, and I have a lot of confidence moving forward. It'll continue to be a focus of mine as we move forward. Let me talk about our online programs, the College of Graduate and Continuing Studies. We founded this a while back with great fanfare under President Schneider's tenure, and we've waxed and waned with this program. And Dr. Karen Gaines, our provost, has made it a priority that we will turn this into a true moneymaker. Now, we're still real early in bringing our summer program on board. Where the budget was, again, conservatively built at about $1 million from the CGCS program. Right now, we are cautiously optimistic that we may be 10 to 20% higher in our CGCS enrollment than what our projections originally indicated. I can tell you from personal experience that, again, beyond the money that these online programs bring in, the reputation that Norwich is earning in this very key cutting edge educational space is growing pretty renowned. I came out of Washington, D.C. We are hitting the military community especially hard. There are a lot of people that are very interested in taking these classes. We're seeing that bear out in the numbers of enrollments that we're having in the program, and I have a lot of confidence that CGCS is going to carry us forward in a pretty good way. I've been watching the time. I'm very conscious of it. I've eaten up about half the time, and I really want to get to your questions. Let me switch gears, talking about athletics a little bit. I will tell you, I have more alumni calling me about athletics than just about anything else. It is amazing how many different topics in emails I will get every day. Overwhelmingly, athletics is usually one of the hot topics of the day. I want to make it very clear. Athletics is key. It is foundational to Norwich and the student experience here at Norwich University. I am a big believer in building and recruiting to winning sports teams. I want to make that very clear. In that regard, I have some really good late breaking news. And a kudos to our athletic director, Ed Hockenberry, and all of his coaches, that we were the winners of the Commissioners Cup this year for the GNAC, the Greater New England Athletic Conference, of which we're a member. You win the Commissioners Cup by having, in our case, a wide variety of teams that qualify for the playoffs, and in some cases, like swimming, actually winning championships. And so we were the number one team out of the entire GNAC this year, and Ed and his coaches and all of our student athletes certainly deserve to be the winners of the Commissioners Cup. So we're on track, we're on target, and I'm hoping to accelerate off of these efforts. I'm just going to quickly wrap up with a couple of quick bullets on our facilities. You heard me talk about the great campus that we have. I'll tell you, we have some very hardworking people in our facilities maintenance office, in our facilities maintenance department. Day in and day out, they are working very hard to sustain and maintain this university. Going forward, it will be one of the priorities that I am going to have is sustaining this beautiful campus that we have. And I'm not talking just about cutting the grass and keeping the grounds looking beautiful like they do now, but really digging in on that underlying infrastructure and making sure that we're not taking any of our budget shortfalls out of or by taking on more backlog maintenance. We've worked too hard. We've put together too beautiful a campus to let it degrade on us. And I am going to make the backlog of maintenance here on the university a priority for us. Let me wrap it up with that because I am watching the clock and I want to make sure that I give Diane time to throw your questions to me, and I'll ask her to start doing that. But before I do, I'll wrap up my bullet points with this. I'm jumping on a lot of stuff right up front. It's been a frenetic couple of weeks. If you could see my calendar, it's as busy as I ever was as a general in the Pentagon. And that's purposeful. I am impatient with getting at a lot of the things that I believe you need me and you want me to be doing as your president. But I will ask for your patience because I can't possibly get my hands around everything all at once. I do have a great team, supporting me here. You should be very proud of the folks that are running our university today. I want you to be proud of them. They are great teammates for me. Be patient as we build our momentum into the future. And I'm gonna stop there. I'll come back up and I'll give some wrap up comments. But Diane, let's go ahead and start taking some of the questions. I think they're more important.
So we had a question from Bruno Guillemette, who was asking about our JROTC recruiting program, which I think you addressed. I have spoken with him previously, wondering why we aren't using volunteers more for that effort.
So we welcome volunteers across the board. So let me give you my perspective on it, having done it. Recruiting young folks to come to college is not an easy thing, and I will caution that you think that we can just go to college fairs and talk about the university. It's very complicated. Parents and students that are seeking to come to college are very sophisticated today. So I welcome volunteers, but if you're going to do it, I would ask that you remain very closely linked with the university, particularly the admissions department and where they want to go, and how we're doing that and what our message is. The team has worked very hard on that message. That said, I'd love to throw a challenge out to all of you that, if I don't know how many people we got on board here, Dave, I don't know if you can say 202. If we had 202 of you recruit one student, we would really get at any admission shortfall that we may have pretty easily. So you're always welcome to help us do that. I love it when alumni are talking about our school, encouraging students to come here, taking very deliberate steps to get out and do it. Volunteers in that regard are always welcome. But I would ask that we do it in complement to the very focused effort we have in putting the right message out there. And I hope that some of those numbers that you heard from me show that it bears out that we are doing that. So volunteers, always welcome. I'm going to talk to you about time, talent, and treasure later. What I would really like to see is alum, really going out and finding, those students that really want to be here. So I do welcome that.
So a parent wrote in asking if we're considering a different food service company. There are some parents who have concerns about the quality and value of the food that we're serving.
So I will tell you that's not on my scope yet. I welcome comments and thoughts about it. I haven't been here with the student body to see it. If you don't mind, I don't mean to do it. here I'm asking you for that patience thing again, right? Give me a chance to take a look at that as the students come on board. Sodexo is our contractor. We got no plans to replace Sodexo today. And to be honest, I'll learn more about it, but I promise you that feeding our students well, making sure that we get a good value for our money is important. And I'll develop a good relationship with Sodexo to make sure that we're doing, taking care of our students in the right way. Wish I could offer you more, but that's one of those I gotta actually see as people are coming on board. I got it as a note, and I'll take a look.
Sir, we had a question about our alumni ambassador program. Is it still active, and are we looking for volunteers to be part of it?
Well, I think that's kind of like the first one that I talked about. No, I don't think we have an active alumni ambassador program out there today. But again, I encourage all alum to talk up your university and to encourage folks to come. Now, I may be off base on that, and I welcome Danielle or anybody else from the staff that's out there doing it. But we've got to make sure that if you're going to be out there doing it, I'd ask you be in line with our program.
I can tag on, sir, really quickly. The ambassador program is no longer. We're changing to the maroon and gold, and we are revamping the program this summer. More to come.
Got it. Thanks, Danielle.
Sir, what are your goals for the size of the Corps?
So let me state this unequivocally. My number one recruiting priority is to get the Corps of Cadets up to our targeted number. One of the questions I asked is, how do we get at our targeted number? How many do we want to have? So to include our civilian dorms and everything else, it's 2121 is the magic number, although we want to add in about we're actually saying our targeted number is 2,500. Our ideal Corps number, if we could get every member of the Corps that we wanted and fill every bed space and have the ideal Corps, it would be about 1,400. That's my target. That's my goal. We're not going to achieve that given the dynamics and the demographics of college students, high school students that are propense to go to college today. But we are working toward that. We're working toward 1,400. My guess is we'll be somewhere at around 1,100. Maybe that's a little bit optimistic, but not by much if it is at all. So I think we'll be close to 1,100 this year, but 1,400 is the ultimate goal.
Sir, you've been affiliated with Norwich in a number of roles over the years, but as president, what's been the most interesting or striking difference you've noticed in your new role?
Okay. I kind of highlighted it. The breadth of questions that I get that come directly to me, and I'm not discouraging that kind of stuff at all. But it is amazing, the number of people that email me and the variety of things that I get. Literally from, my GPA was not miscalculated to, great suggestions on how to get at a better winning sports program, and the rest. The breadth of things that I have observed just in the time that I've been in this seat is incredible. My learning curve is going to be very steep for a while. I would maintain that anybody that comes into a job like this, the learning curve is going to be very steep. So just that breadth of things is probably the most important. I'm fairly confident in my abilities. I've run big, large organizations, very, very complex. But there are some new things for me here, and I've got a great team really doing a great job in helping me out and shoring up my weaknesses. But I'm going to spend a lot of my time understanding the breadth of this business, and that's how I am approaching it, is as a business, because that's how we stay viable, and that's how we move into the future. So never taken my eye off the ball. That what we are here to do, though, is educate young women and men who fit our university, and that will always be my principal focus.
As a follow-up to that, sir, beyond evolving the cyber program, which you referenced, how's Norwich evolving its academic undergraduate programs to stay competitive in the marketplace?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And it is going to be an essential part of our strategic plan. Having, we like to talk, we talk in buzzwords, right? An agile academic program is vital to what we have, what we need to do here at our university. No matter how much money we raise, if we're not providing a cutting edge education in today's environment, we're either doing a disservice to our students, or we won't remain in business for very long, and I won't let any of that happen. I have great confidence in Dr. Karen Gaines's thoughts and plans on how we're going to move forward, working very closely with our faculty to make sure that we stay current and we stay focused on those things that are important today. I'll give you an example. We had a great conversation today. Again, if you're following, what's the conversation, there are a lot of kids that are saying, I say kids, a lot of young high school students that are saying, hey, I'm just going to go to a certificate program and get a certificate in Python or whatever the current AI program is, and go start earning my money. And that's what we're competing against in some regards. But we offer a much broader and more in-depth both education as well as immersive lifestyle experience here. And I'm confident that we've got a good story to tell in that regard. We've got to do it by not only educating them in the broad swath of things that are expected of a university, but also giving them those certificate level skills. So when you come here, you get both. You get the training of those very specific skills that are current today, but you get the breadth and the depth of the education that allows you to have a more competitive, a more well-rounded experience, and brings you much further in the future than a certificate will. That's the kind of student we want here at Norwich, somebody that's embracing that full lifestyle, that full education. It will be part of our strategic plan. Karen Gaines and I have already talked about that. It will be in there that we will maintain a cutting edge program, and we will have specific metrics as well as key milestones that we're going to meet to do this. So that's a foundational part of our strategy going forward.
Sir, we have about 225 people on this call, and we have about 17,000 living alumni. The question is, how do you plan to engage our alumni, parents, and friends to be supportive and involved in Norwich going forward?
So this is the first start, right? I committed to you when I did my town halls before the Board of Trustees made their final vote that I would engage with our alumni. I'm an alum. My wife is an alum. We take it very, very seriously. We have great friends from our class who are also very engaged and won't let me do anything less. I think some of them are probably on this call today. And if you are class of 83, thanks for being here, and thanks for all you do. Our alum are important to me. So we start with this. We start with these kind of forums. I'm going to try and make it as personal as possible. Just today, Diane and the team sat down with me to discuss Alumni Weekend. That's going to be my first big opportunity to go face to face with many of you. My intent is to do exactly that. You won't see me sitting still much. You will see me out and about and engaged, and I'm hoping that the staff is very quickly learning that I ask a lot of questions, I take a lot on board, and I will invite all of you to do that as well. I'll go back to what I said. The emails are overwhelming. I don't want to tell you don't send me emails, but quite frankly, I just can't get to them all. I appreciate the advice, but I will find some ways to do it more formally. We'll do it this way. We'll do it through engagements. I'm going to limit my travel right up front because I think I need to be here on campus and getting at that first priority that I talked about. But I will hit the road. You'll see me at alumni clubs. I do ask that, if you're in a place where we've got a robust alumni club or even one that isn't necessarily robust, invite me to come, and I'll work with Diane and Dave Casey and the team to make sure that I put visiting those alumni clubs on my calendar. When I get out and about in different places, I'm going to reach out to different alum. Particularly those that are engaging. And again, you'll hear me talking a little bit about time, talent, and treasure. I'm very interested in what you have to say, and we will find the right forums to do it. So, and that is important to me. Hearing from you is critical. I'll extend that out to parents as well, particularly as the students are coming on board. We'll find the ways through Parents Weekend, through other times when you're up here on campus. You'll see me out and about engaging with you, and I encourage you all to take advantage of those face-to-face moments.
I think we have time for a couple more questions. I know you have some closing remarks. So one of them is, you mentioned Navy and Army ROTC. Do you have any plans down the road to increase Air Force ROTC?
So I talked about two programs, Navy Prep and the Army 3-year scholarship. So Army has already identified potential future students for 3-year scholarships down the road. Those are two very deliberate programs that those services sought out. Would I love to do the same thing for the Air Force? You bet. I'd love to see the Air Force engage with us in those additional scholarships like the other two services did. I can't tell you why they're not offering similar programs. But if they want to do it, we'll take them on, and we'll go after them. And I think you'll see that we're going to do a pretty good job with this. We've got great professors of military, naval, and aeronautical science on board right now. I will tell you, very interesting note. We are getting our first Space Force professor of aerospace science on board. So the Air Force is actually sending us somebody from the Space Force to run the Air Force ROTC program here. I'm excited about that because it gives us somebody who truly is at the cutting edge of what the military services are doing. We'll continue to work with them. If they're going to offer the program to us, we're going to grab a hold of it, and we're going to bring them on board. So,
Sir, we're almost at time. There are some other questions that are here in the chat box. So just to let everybody know, this is the first of what we anticipate being a series of town halls with the president. If your questions weren't answered here, or if you have additional questions, please email them to alumni@norwich.edu, and we'll get them to the president for his response. But before we wrap up now, President Broadmeadow, do you have some closing remarks you'd like to share?
Doing what you asked me not to do, and I'm just skimming real quick through the chat, and I'm not going to get to. I'm not going to be Diane. I'm willing to go a couple minutes extra if there's something you're seeing out there that you'd really like to get to in terms of questions. I'm okay with that. I'm seeing a lot out there. I'm not digesting them as I'm trying to focus on what I'm saying. If you or Dave see something out there that you really want to get to, I'm good. If not, we can go ahead and wrap up and do it your way. I'll let you give me a head nod if you see something. So, but I did see one out here that I did want to get to. Will there be a focused effort to engage with the CGCS alumni? I think that's an untapped resource for recruitment and to simply support the university. Absolutely terrific question. So you heard me talk. I try and talk in business terms. It's what I feel comfortable with, and it's what I really want to do. And I understand academia is a little bit different. I talked though about diversifying income streams, and like this question, I think CGCS is an untapped potential. While I think we're really proud of our CGCS grads, I personally don't think we've done enough to to tap that potential. So yes, is the easy answer there. That we will really lean in. Frank Leha, one of our board of trustee members, who is a CGCS grad and who did the master's hooding ceremony for this year, is a huge proponent of that. And I definitely want to tap that. I will tell you, if you're not tracking on Women Kicking Glass, which is a fabulous effort, it's focused on our women, 50 years of women in the Corps of Cadets. But it's also highlighting for us that we've had a lot of civilian students around this campus for a long time, 50 years. And actually, some of you may remind me, actually beyond 50 years. So there's another area that very interested in making sure we pay more attention to and to look at as a resource for our university. Our civilian grads, our civilian our civilian student alumni are important to us as well. But CGCS in particular, for those of you that don't know, the Sergeant Major of the Army is a CGCS grad, very proud CGCS grad. We've also made inroads into the special operations community. Those are a great group of alum who are very proud of their affiliation with Norwich. You heard me talk about Brian Bill and the Perrys. They have helped us an awful lot in that regard, in getting scholarships for CGCS, particularly within the soft community. Great potential, and I really do want to embrace them like we do and we always have our traditional Corps of Cadets grads. So, a couple of untapped potentials out there that I'm going to ask our new vice president for assistant vice president for alumni affairs, to really focus on and look at, and those will be areas that we lean in on. So, okay, hey, let me wrap up, because we could keep talking forever with the questions that are out there. We will try and get to them. I promise you that we will do this on a very regular basis, and I welcome your feedback on how often is enough. What I've talked an awful lot about here are income streams and the budget, and putting us on financially secure footing and all the rest. And I talked to you about those levers that we can pull on enrollment and discount rates and endowment draws and all the rest. I've talked to you about bringing students on board, the right kinds of students on board, quality programs to help them graduate. These things are run by the staff here, the staff and administration. Our faculty are tremendous, and we do a pretty good job on it, but we cannot do it alone. We need you. I need you on a very big and broad team. I talk time, talent, and treasure. Not everybody can be a financial donor all the time. I get that. If you can be, please do that. Please consider our university as a place for your philanthropic goals. You will be helping not only your alma mater, but we really do make a huge difference in young people's lives. I'm here only because I believe in the mission of this university and how important it is for America. And that's not overstating what our school does. And I hope you recognize that. So if you've got the treasure to donate, please consider that. We have any number of programs that will help you do that. But beyond the money aspect, your time and your talent are important. Fielded a couple of questions about, recruiting and can we help on recruiting? Yes, you can. I want to say that just because we don't have a formal program out there doesn't mean that I don't want you going out and talking to young students. Talk about your university. Talk about how it's impacted your lives and the things that you've done. Talk about how great it is today. It remains an important and good way for young people to really shape and mold their future lives. It's no different than when we went here. It is still providing a quality education and lifestyle and learning experience for young people today. Please, am I back?
Yes, you are, sir.
Okay, good. Thank you. I need you doing that. I need you volunteering, but it's not just in recruiting students. It's supporting the school in any number of ways. I've talked about alumni clubs, building the spirit, bringing alumni, fellow alumni back into the fold, and talking about what a great institution we are. Just doing that, getting the word out. Sometimes we say we're the best unknown school in the country. Our marketing campaign has started to change some of that, but you talking about our alma mater makes a big difference. Please do that. And finally, your talent. There are any number of ways that I would love to use your life experiences to help our school, to help our students. And I welcome that. I'm open to all sorts of ideas on that, but there are plenty of programs from the Norwich University Alumni Association to the Board of Fellows and other places where you can make a real impact with your talent in today's students. And I welcome you to do that. As I'm coming on board, I'm loving this experience so far. It's not without a little bit of trepidation. It's a big job. It's a big responsibility. I feel the weight of that. I understand that I won't know everything right up front, but I am confident in the team that I have, that we have here on board. They are dedicated to this university. I promise you that I will be focused on continuing to bring quality young men and women into our school, shaping and molding them in the Norwich style, and sending them out to be leaders for our nation. That's what we do. And you have me dedicated to that task here, and I'm feeling pretty confident in the job after this first month. So I look forward to engaging with you more. And if there's anything I can do, please get word to us. You're not hesitant to do that, as I've said. But I'm ready to take it all on board, as to the degree I can. Please be patient with me. That's all I have very much. Essayance, everybody. Thank you, Diane.